powered by Riverside FM.
Hello and welcome to Operation Podcast, where we dive into the rewarding and challenging journey of fatherhood while balancing demanding careers. Join us as we share real stories, practical advice, and meaningful conversations about being a present and an engaged father.
Today I'm talking with Britni Kelley, a licensed marriage and family therapist, and this is something, we're going to get into how fun our reconnection was, but I'm excited for this episode because you have this incredible perspective of seeing first responders at their worst. As a first responder myself, I would say that we see people at their worst. So, man, how did this field find you?
Yeah, good question. It's been a road. Way back to when we actually first met, when I was an undergrad. I was set actually to work in a church and do youth ministry stuff. That's where I was headed. And then I recognized in my internship very quickly that I just wanted to sit and have coffee with people. And I was like, well, how do I do that and get paid?
Yeah.
I just really cared about the depth of a person, the inner workings of a person, where they came from, and what brought them to where they are today.
Okay.
So that launched me to grad school and deciding to figure out, how do I become a therapist? I kind of didn't even really know what all that was, but I was like, I think I want to do it. So I landed at Bethel Seminary. They have actually a marriage and family therapy program there. So I was able to integrate spiritual and faith-related things, which matter to me. It's not the forefront of what I do now, but it informs how I care for people. My own faith informs that. But I dove into treating people who actually started my career in treating people with borderline personality disorder, which is a real deep dive. Like, just jump full force, like both feet in.
That clientele, that demographic is pretty intense.
So complicated and so intense. Like, everyone on my caseload was like, I don't know if I want to be here. And I was like, oh dear, all right, I'm going to learn how to swim. Wow. So I was this brand new therapist working with the most intense population and nearly all women. So fast forward, I've been in the field for 10 or 12 years now. Fast forward to owning my own practice in St. Paul. And I was like, all right, I specialize in treating trauma. I know that from working with my previous population, and what kind of informed me getting into the field personally was just having a knowing of what is trauma.
Yeah.
My own upbringing and all of that. And from working with this high intensity population, I knew that I wanted to help people understand, make sense out of, and metabolize their early learnings. But I didn't know that was the population I wanted to do it with. It was really complicated. It took a team, and I wanted to go out on my own and do my own business. So that landed me in private practice, where I specialized in treating trauma with just kind of anybody who came in the door. Mm-hmm. And anybody who came in the door, it became very apparent that the ICU nurses I work with, the paramedics, and then now all the first responders who have flooded my caseload are the ones that I really enjoy working with.
That's so interesting.
Yeah, it's just kind of evolved over time to land me here, and it feels really natural and really rewarding.
You said a lot of things I want to unpack. Let me go back to, you mentioned the art of a conversation with someone over coffee. Mm-hmm. Where does the desire to connect with people come from?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, in my early life, I had a lot of hands-off parenting. My parents were really preoccupied with older siblings who had more things going on, or the stress of their own lives. They were hard workers, my parents. Just we weren't low income, but we were kind of on the verge. And so they were preoccupied. And I ended up finding community in my young years at a church I went to. It became like a home, a second home. And then families from that environment became my family. And they listened to me. They would sit, they would talk with me, they would stay up late and do the things that I really had craved in my own family.
Wow.
And so I recognized that as I grew older, that was really something that shaped me and was such a gift to me that I wanted to do it with other people. I also just find a fascination with understanding people and where they come from and how they see the world. So a conversation over coffee was, I don't know, you could do it underage.
Yeah.
Enjoy it. And, now that has just shifted to I hold a cup of coffee in my office and I have a conversation with somebody. I'm almost always with a cup of coffee.
Wow. So you kind of accidentally fell into it takes a village to raise someone.
Yeah.
And you just resulted from what we see now as the result of the best components of that.
Yeah, that's exactly it. Yeah.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
I love that. Okay. So you did your undergrad, which is where we met, which is so fun because I should also go back and say in the infancy of this podcast, which arguably we're still in, but at the very beginning, you reached out to me saying, oh, how fun. This is such a cool idea. This is my demographic that I work with. And you and I have been trying to find time to sit down and chat now. And here we are.
I know. It's so exciting. I think it's just so stinking cool.
Yeah.
I would have never mapped that we would cross paths again.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. That's so fun. It's so fun. Okay. So the world of undergrad, you started with your demographic that you began your career with, moved into first responders, and you spoke a lot about trauma. Mm-hmm. Between the two key demographics you've worked with so far in your career, what similar aspects of trauma have you found between the two?
When I think about working with people with borderline personality disorder, I am not comparing them to my first responder clients. Mm-hmm. It is actually incredibly different. It may actually be the flip side of the coin. As far as presentation and symptomology, all of that feels very, very different. But like the common thread is trauma. Mm-hmm. It just comes out so differently. So for a person who is diagnosed with borderline personality disorder, you could actually call that an attachment wound in their young years, attachment with a family member. Ideally, both of their parents would have been something strong and reliable and secure and trustworthy. And somewhere along the line, that got broken, and it got broken so badly that it distorted the personality of the person. Yeah. And the outcome of that is a really, really complicated person. However, when I then shifted into doing first response work, I was like, okay, I know how to treat trauma. I know how to treat it when it's at its like highest peak of presentation where everything's going wrong, the wheels are falling off. But in the first responder population, I see like a quiet wheels falling off. There's a silence in it. It's like when something goes so silent, it's like, oh shit, that's not good.
Wow.
Like, oh, this. And so actually in my learning, I've had to take a pause and go, okay, whoa, how do I work with this when there's almost nothing there to grab? Whereas, I'm working all the time with people like, come on down, bring it down. Like, no, stop doing that. But this is like, wait, where have you gone? You've disappeared. Mm-hmm. And that's to the one extreme where I see people losing themselves, and we've got stuff in the middle too. But I would say trauma is that like common thread. How it's incurred, different, maybe some overlap, but not the same.
Okay. So I'm hearing borderline personality disorder is the result of internal factors. Maybe trauma is a result of internal factors, whereas your first responder population, they are receiving trauma due to external factors, just based off the 911 calls they respond to.
Sure. I don't know if I would say internal, external, because both are externally motivated by like how you're treated in your childhood.
Okay.
and what you're exposed to. So it's still an exposure wound, but by who? And to what extent, right? We've got like this chronic kind of complex trauma where your brain is developing and you're a child. And then you've got this overwhelmed, powerless trauma of like, I'm responding to things that are unbelievable, horrifying, impossible. And you're having to figure it out. So yeah, it is quite different how the trauma is incurred, but then there's this overlap between, what got you to the field. Like, why do you need to go save people? And it's amazing. We need people to step in when everyone else would run away. However, what is the predisposition to do that, right? Is there something from your childhood that was like, I wasn't protected, I'm going to go protect? And that's a beautiful translation. That's a really cool translation that's resilient to say, I'm going to take what I went through and use it for good. So I could see that there would be some minor overlap, but not to the extent of a full shift in the personality.
I love that question. What is it that what you're asking your clients, what is it that attracted you to the field? Is that the common answer that you get back? Or what would you say if you could numerically identify responses from your first responders? What is it that got you interested in the field? What's most of the answers, the feedback you're getting?
I don't know.
Yeah.
I get a lot of I don't know, dude. Never thought about it. Get a lot of that. But once we get down to it, yeah, sometimes I have to push, poke, prod a little bit, in good fun. But yeah, I would say that it may not be something people like to admit. Like, oh yeah, I'm doing this because of what I went through.
Yeah.
But I would say a lot of people, that is what brings them. It's what draws them. It's what drew me to being a therapist, And I think there's something to like own about that.
Sure.
That's really actually okay.
Yeah, that's interesting. Would you say a large majority of your clientele are males? Okay.
Yeah. So my caseload flipped.
Really?
Oh, yeah. All these women coming in, so many emotions. And now I've got all these men who don't want to see each other in the waiting room. And we're trying to, juggle that. But it's fun. It's super fun.
Oh, my gosh. That's so interesting. How does the nature of their work, the constant exposure to high stress, high stakes situations, how does that manifest into mental health? Or I guess the worst parts of mental health, maybe?
Yeah. What I see with this population is, high incidence of more physical symptoms. We've got like just physical health, physical ailments showing up. I don't know if you're familiar with Bessel van der Kolk's The Body Keeps the Score, but it's this great book that somehow went viral. I am not sure how, because it is so stinking heady.
Oh my gosh, say more.
It's like thick. It's really dense. Talk about neurology and understanding how we got to where we are with traumatization. And, his whole premise is, hey, you went through something. You think your mind went through it? Your whole body went through it. And so if we don't do the work to metabolize that stress, make sense of it, process it, let it get filed away as new learning and resilience, it manifests in the body as some other which way. Chest pain. I can't tell you how many people come to my office after they've been to the ER a few times thinking they're having heart attacks. And it's actually more of a stress reaction in the body saying, hello, you've been through too much. And something recently just activated it again to the point where it's kind of boiled over. So I see the manifestation of stress coming out in the body with a lot of my responder clients. And then I just see it like in the day-to-day. I see it in irritability, agitation.
Very familiar with the irritability.
Yeah. Oh, man. I mean, like you spill something and it's like 0 to 100, it's like, well, it was just a bottle of water, but it wasn't. Like in that moment, that was this representation of it all spilling over. And so I see that a lot, and I see a lot of distance and difficulty in marriages or significant other relationships, and a lot of difficulty with overstimulation around kids, especially auditory, I should say, stimulation.
Okay. Yeah, I'm hearing what I would call red flags.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, even as you describe them, I think to myself, like, well, I know irritability for sure.
Yep.
And my wife would probably attest to that as well.
Yeah, for sure.
But it's. I'm sure there's probably miles of literature written about all of these things, but hearing them spoken out loud, at least for me, is a little bit more profound. You wouldn't find someone like myself sitting on a couch, maybe reading about something like this. I would say I'm getting more in the world of audiobooks for sure, self-help, all that stuff.
Yeah, sure.
But definitely rapping about it in person is a great way to kind of unpack it as well, which is really good. So do you see any difference in how stress manifests between firefighters, paramedics, law enforcement? You mentioned ED, docs, nurses.
Sure. Yep.
Does it all look the same? Is it
among the disciplines, you mean, or among the?
Yeah.
It's a good question. It's pretty similar. Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, I would say that I may see or feel more of an on-edgeness or like a jittery feeling from those that are taking a ton of medical calls. Just the sheer amount of adrenaline that's needed to engage and also do this like kind of skillful self-protection of like derealize, depersonalize, like kind of manage your way through something because you have to do your job. So then I do experience more of a intensity in that population who are taking more medical calls, and the sheer call volume is like insane for medical. So the cumulative stress is higher as well for that particular.
For paramedics, you're saying?
Yeah. Yeah. Or like ICU or, ER.
Yeah, I can see that. I can see a shift just from my lens.
Yeah.
I see that as well, for sure. Yeah, that's an interesting perspective. You'd said something earlier that kind of fired off a question and now it's falling back into the subconscious.
Yeah, I get that. One more thing, I think there's also, a lot of stigma especially in law enforcement, fire. It's going to be a little different in each kind of land, but that stigma it shows up a bit differently in those worlds. We've got like the rumor mill in the fire department. Like we call it the sewing circle. So we've got that, which is one way to offload agitation and stress, but not really deal with it. And then you've got like lips are sealed in the police department. So you've kind of got a mix of like how we're handling and how we're dealing with. So the symptoms kind of come out in a different way. Either are we talking about it but not actually talking about it? Are we holding it all in and shoving it all down? And a lot of that's influenced, from just years of tradition and expectation around being tough or holding it together.
Do you think there's accumulation of gender-specific tendencies in that as well?
It's interesting. I do have some females on my caseload, and they follow right along because no way do they want to be seen as the weak one. And so they'll almost bury it deeper, dude. Like, no way. I mean, there's all this apology around showing emotion because it's just like, well, it's going to be expected that I'm going to be the emotional one. And so I can't be the emotional one.
Oh,
and,
I can see that.
I mean, it is a little bit fraught, a little complicated. So I do think women work really hard to not fall into that stereotype, so to speak.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So we were talking offline before we got started. My wife, sister-in-law, mother, all kind of orbit this world of therapy. I have come to learn that it takes a lot of energy and a lot of effort to have people sit across from you and tell you their worst stories. That's a lot to unpack. How do you structure your client load to keep yourself healthy?
Yeah. Well, I have a couple guardrails, so I don't see more than 5 or 6 people in a day. I take Fridays off as of this year in the summers. When I go home, I'm with my kids. I like separate that and make sure that I'm really with them, and I engage in like lots of play and snuggles with them. It's not always perfect though. So as I, navigate life with my clientele, with a bunch of first responders who have maybe been through a pretty normal segment or not, I may go through some stuff with them, so I also see my own therapist. I make sure that I've got her in my back pocket, and I can definitely rely on her to then help me put some things back together. And I have strategies that I use with my clients to help regulate and metabolize the information I've heard.
Are these strategies that you've inherently learned yourself, strategies you've been able to bring in through your training to cultivate this atmosphere at home? Yeah.
So my specialty is treating trauma, and we would call it, I'm an EMDR therapist, which is eye movement desensitization and reprocessing.
Oh, can you unpack that?
Yeah, it's so good. So before I unpack it, I'll just say that from that model of therapy, I've come up with, I haven't come up with, but I've gleaned a lot of strategy and coping skills, and we call them inner resources, to be able to manage and engage in more stressful and taxing work and metabolize it and make sense out of it myself.
Sure.
So, I may not be on the streets doing the work, but I'm then hearing it, and we call that vicarious trauma. So a lot of people come in, if it sticks to you in an unpleasant way, it would be like vicarious traumatization. You're kind of like getting trauma from someone else's story. So I'm not showing that in session if I'm feeling traumatized. I know how to like contain and have my boundaries and be there for my client. But if something sticks to me, I know how to unstick it later through some methods that I use through either EMDR, which I'll unpack in a minute. And then I use something called thought field therapy too, which is a tapping protocol. You tap a bunch of different spots on your body, and it helps the nervous system essentially correct. So I had a client kind of coin the term, it's like hacking the nervous system. And I was like, that sounds way tougher. Like that sounds way more.
It sounds awesome.
Palatable. It's really cool, actually. It definitely does something to reverse effects of trauma, or it's amazing at erasing images. So if you've seen something, or if you're learning a story and you create an image in your head, I work with dispatchers too, so they don't see anything, but they have such vivid imaginations, they could create some serious crime shows.
Oh, I can't imagine the lens they have.
Right. Yeah. And they're hearing all this stuff, but to hear it isn't to not see it. Your brain creates a story in your mind, whether you like it or not. And it may not be true. I mean, it isn't. You're creating imagery. So you tell me a story, I'm creating imagery in my mind of what I think that was like, based on my own experiences, based on things I've seen, based on how you're explaining it. So if an image gets stuck in my head, real or not, I'm going to use this hacking the nervous system or thought field therapy to erase it.
Okay.
I think on that image, I do a sequence of tapping, and that image all of a sudden gets desensitized. It's like further away.
What is the lineage of this practice? Is this something that's been used for many years?
Yeah, I don't remember the actual origin year. I want to say the 80s.
Okay.
Roger Callahan is the developer of thought field therapy. And, in his practice and his development of it, it was like a standalone treatment. It's like that's what you would do. You wouldn't go talk. You would just go identify the problem, activate the nervous system around it, get you to kind of like feel it again, essentially wake the neurology up around it and your nervous system, and then tap in this particular sequence depending on what your problem was. And he has sequences all the way from complex trauma, like the algorithm that I'll use, to jet lag. He's got like a tapping sequence for jet lag.
Oh,
all right. I don't really understand that one, but amazing. So you can tap into the nervous system while thinking on this thing, and it would bring the intensity down. So he would just do that with his patients, and sure enough, they would get better.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, in all sorts of different areas. I just happen to use it specifically with erasing images or recovering from some sort of traumatic event in a way to desensitize enough. It's like I use it to take the edge off of something.
Okay.
And then that's when I weave in EMDR.
Oh, so you use it as a garnish, if you will.
I do,
Okay.
yeah. Yeah, if you come in and you're just rattling and you're a 10 out of 10, to just dive in and be like, let's work with that is just not really all that possible. And it's not all that wise. So if we can bring it down to a place that's a little bit more manageable, even an 8 is less than a 10. So if we can bring the intensity down a little bit, then we go in with an EMDR approach, which EMDR, you want to learn more about that?
Yes, I do.
Yeah,
Please
so
unpack
good.
that.
So EMDR, it was created by Francine Shapiro in the late 80s, is the developer. She has since passed in the recent years, but she has been a real profound developer of this protocol, and then all these offshoot protocols that come from it. But it started as EMD, eye movement desensitization, where she recognized that as she was all right, let me just tell you how she figured this out, because it's kind of fun, and it also feels a little annoying that we couldn't all just stumble upon an amazing treatment that works.
Don't we all feel that way about great ideas?
Man, right. Someone figured it out. So she was going on a walk one day, and as she was walking, she was thinking on a hard thing. And it was a hard thing in her life that wasn't changing and wasn't going to change. It was just a hard and shitty thing. And so for most of us, when we think on hard things, we just do the spiral to the bottom of the barrel, and then we feel like crap. And then we go, well, that was that. And we do something to like distract, tuck it away, push it away, and move on until the next time it resurfaces or gets activated. Well, she recognized that as she was thinking, she was feeling better, which was confusing to her and interesting to her. So as she was walking, she then simulated this little research study on herself. I feel like I'm telling you a lie, but it's actually true. I just think it's hilarious. So she was like, all right, I'm going to make myself think of something complicated, hard, not likely to change in my life again, and see if I'm doing something different. She recognized as she was walking and thinking, she was moving her eyes back and forth in more of a diagonal pattern. So, when you're walking,
Kinda
you're
like
checking the ground.
How I've been doing since we've been talking.
Yeah. So you're checking the ground, checking your laptop, and then you're looking up, like, okay, what else is up in front of me? And then you're looking down. And she recognized that there must be something to the eye movement. So then that launched her into taking 2 populations that at the time were deemed as like unfixable, untreatable. Men who had been in frontline combat coming back from war, who had shell shock at the time or PTSD, and then women who had been assaulted. She took these 2 populations who no one else could help, and she said, all right, I'm going to sit in front of you, kind of alongside of you. I'm going to have you think on this hard thing that happened or that you did that you never thought you'd do, and I'm going to have you watch my fingers, and I'm going to move them back and forth in front of your eyes. And you're just going to look at my fingers with your eyes back and forth, back and forth. So simulate or stimulate eye movement, which now we know is called bilateral stimulation, something that's occurring across the midline of the body, activating both hemispheres of the brain, which we need activated in order for healing of trauma to occur. So as she's going back and forth, people were desensitizing. They would think of the image and they're like, I can't really like see it anymore. Or like, it's smaller. It looks different. It doesn't freak me out anymore. It's like the heat of the memory came all the way out. So as she continued her research, she recognized that if we can desensitize someone to a horrific experience or something that they had done that they never thought they would do, moral injury, those kind of things, wow, I guess if it's desensitized, we could actually then reprocess. So that's where the R came online, so EMDR. We could reprocess a belief about ourselves or the world that got stuck in that distressing time. Like, I'm not safe. It now could be, well, if that's not so distressing and I recognize I'm here now, maybe it could be, well, I could feel safe when I am safe.
Oh, wow, that's very interesting. So I have heard of both types of therapy from a couple different sources. One being therapists, one being recipients of therapy. What would you tell the population of both of those characters who don't believe in it?
Totally. Well, I mean, the evidence is shown.
Sure.
EMDR is one of the most evidence-based treatments that you can find that is not funded by pharmaceutical companies.
Oh, that's very interesting.
Yes, it is. And it's actually the whole story of how she, fought tooth and nail to get it, recognized is pretty fascinating. And she had to do it. She had to go back more than once after being denied. And finally got it into, recognized treatment. So I'm not a fan of doing things that don't work. So if I want someone to know something, it's like, hey, this works. And I mean, personally, I've done it and it works. I can attest to it. And I can attest to testing it. At first I didn't believe it either. I was like, all right, let's go do that. Really? That's going to work? I'm going to see it differently now? I'm going to feel different? Like never have I ever. This is always what it's going to be. And then in my nature is to test things. So I go off, do my own EMDR therapy, and I come back and I provoke it. And sure enough, my nervous system isn't reacting like it did before.
Very interesting.
So I would say that. And I would say that, like, if you've tried it, so there are a number of people that will come in and say, I've tried it. I gave it a shot like one time and it was awful and I'm never doing it again. I would say that your therapist wasn't attuned to you then. I would say that you should find a therapist who feels very competent in understanding how to titrate the experience for you.
Do you feel you've been able to tune your practice to clients? What would you say? How long would you? Oh, what's a good way to ask this? Developing the back and forth. How have you cultivated the art of doing that with your clients?
Yeah. Well, I mean, trust is a huge piece of it. And I'm not saying full trust. I'm never asking for anyone's full trust. I'm asking for time to see if there's a connection, to see if, like, you feel comfortable enough to chat with me. I'm asking for, like, a real honest reflection on if you would ever kind of consider going to a space of sharing more important things with me. So when I think about developing trust, like enough trust to go there, I also acknowledge that I could have like a fairly trusting relationship with someone and they still don't want to share those things. And that's okay. And that's the beauty of EMDR is you can still do it and it still works without me knowing the details. And that's actually what sprung me into doing another specialized training within the EMDR world on group traumatic event protocol and recent traumatic event protocol, where I don't need to know all the details. You don't need to tell me anything, but you could call it pop can. As long as you know what you're talking about, and as long as when we engage with bilateral stimulation, that's what you're allowing to come up, it doesn't matter if I know. I just hold the space for you.
And is that a space that's held with a group?
So
Of people?
the protocol is done in two ways. Yeah, one, the recent event protocol that I'm trained in is just one-on-one.
Mm-hmm.
And that's for something that's happened recent, just like in the name. And then the group traumatic event protocol, which I'll be hosting a group soon at Invisible Wounds Project. I don't know if you're familiar with that. It's a first responder specific wellness center in Forest Lake. And they have
Forest Lake, Minnesota,
Yep.
for the listeners.
Oh, yeah. Forest Lake, Minnesota. And they do a bunch of different groups, but this will be the first of its kind to actually do a treatment group. You could do support groups, and that's great. And I think that there's a real need for that, just to know you're not alone. And then there's a time and a place to stop just talking, and doing the treatment.
Sure.
We know talk therapy doesn't actually treat trauma. And so a group model, like the group traumatic event protocol, is one where you're all in a room together, but you're not sharing any traumatic information. So therefore, you're not cross-contaminating. Mm-hmm. Especially in a group of first responders, you say something about your thing and someone else has a similar thing. It's not a safe environment to start talking about all the stuff you've been in if it's not resolved within you.
Okay.
It would be reactivating for the person next door. So the protocol is actually done on a worksheet, and you're guided through it, and you share only the positive points in the protocol. And it's a phased step protocol that's scripted and very safe and very effective. It's where I'm hoping first responder care will go.
That's very interesting.
Yeah.
It sounds like a holistic experience. It's kind of cultivating that sort of vibe, I would say.
Yeah.
In the spirit of holistic treatment, I have a personal question.
Yeah.
We're gonna go off script a little bit.
Great.
I have heard many people talk about, and some coworkers of mine use psilocybin.
Yeah.
Tell me about that world.
Yeah. I mean, this is just personal then. Like, I don't have any clinical experience doing psilocybin treatments or administering or any of that. I do have experience walking people through after they've gone on their own little trip and had their own experience, whether of their own volition and own accord, or they've gone somewhere that has been a therapeutic process. That's been fun work.
Sure.
People they're way more open. Things move. That's when I'm like, yes, let's do some stuff, because there's an openness that isn't otherwise there. And then personally, just my own thoughts to riff on, like, I think it's so great. The possibility and the potential of it is the side effect profile as opposed to something like an SSRI and the stigma around that. But really just the side effect profile, I think, is like really exciting, that you wouldn't have a rough time outside of maybe your experience on the trip.
Sure. Yeah, I had a coworker years ago, early in my career, and he would stack his vacation to do trips down to Argentina, like South America.
Yeah.
And he would be down. Once I knew what he was doing, I had so many questions.
I bet you
for
did.
him. And he finally unpacked this with me. He said, I would stay in a nudist colony for a month or so.
What?
And just be on ayahuasca for that amount of time. And he would just be in the stratosphere. But what I thought was so interesting is that he found the career of firefighting later in life, in his 40s. He was consistently one of the more happier, outgoing, extroverted personalities that I remember working with.
Yeah.
Whether it was just because he developed habits in his younger years, a combination of that and these extraordinary trips he would go on, both internally and externally. Yeah. I just thought, what an interesting personality type. And I thought it was such I really marinated on what he told me, like his experiences. I've never done it myself. I've always thought about trying it eventually, but I just wanted to hear what kind of weight it held in your career field.
Yeah. There's some good research coming up And there are some trainings actually where, there could be integration therapy, especially in Minnesota where I am. It's not legal here. However, we could do the integration therapy. And I think it's a really promising avenue. And, it's just one of those things where it's going to kind of bring down the defenses that as a first responder you need. You need a good self-protective boundary to do the job. But then at some point you go home with it. So if you're going home with it and it's unprocessed and it's stuck, we have to know how to take that protective boundary down. And that is incredibly difficult when you have to go back the next day or the next week. So I can see the potential and the hope for a psilocybin treatment as a way to just say, I'm willing to let it down. I know that this is the process, and it will go back up naturally after the trip is done. So I think that's a cool thing to do. I think there's a lot of hope for it.
Yeah. It all sounds very interesting from, again, not research I've read, because that's just not me. I enjoy listening to people's stories, as I'm sure you do too.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's how you just stumbled across where you're at. That's so interesting. So let's go back for 1 second. Let's talk to the person, first responder or not, who's listening to our conversation right now. Tell me about things they should recognize within themselves that would encourage them to seek attention with a therapist.
Yeah, good question. Well, I do love that question in the sense that I'll answer it in two ways. What I would hope is that you're assessing these things early and taking them seriously early, as opposed to it's very difficult when I have someone come in, and it's not impossible, but it's very difficult when I have someone come in 20 years on and have done not a stitch of therapy and say, I'm ready to unpack my closet. I'm like, woo, are you ready? And you want to stay working? It's hard, dude. So I would say listen early to these things. And the things that I have noticed and have, clients report are things come home with them. Images haunt them. I think haunting is a good way of putting it. If you are haunted by something, it is probably time to go clear that up. And I will encourage the listener, too, that it's possible. I mean, research shows with EMDR, it takes 3 to 5 sessions of EMDR to clear something up.
Is that average?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And this is with war vets.
Oh, wow.
3 to 5 sessions? I'm sorry, let's stop living our whole lives with it then. That's pretty cool. So if you're being haunted by something, names, images, faces, I would say that's time. I would say when you're avoiding, when you catch yourself avoiding the crap out of things you would normally lean into, or avoiding any sort of conversation around what you've been exposed to, or avoiding even just hard conversations with your spouse. Those are signs that, if one more thing was added, it would tip me over. So we're looking at the accumulation of stress. We don't want you to get to the top of the cup where you're spilling over. So all of these signs would be indicators. Drinking more, using other substances more where you wouldn't normally. Those are indicators to listen to. Oh, wow, I'm leaning on this every day and not just some days. It's not just for fun anymore. I even see a symptom of taking every overtime shift as a potential symptom, because it actually feels painful to get out of the heightened state of arousal from being on shift to going off shift. And so I'm just going to stay in it. Does that resonate?
It makes me, you saw me lean back. It makes me think of a demographic. You spoke about the 20-year career person. Yeah. I have seen, and I don't know how I don't know how I identified it. And even with what I've done to identify it, I don't know what it's called, but I know it's a big concern for me is seeing people I work with who have 20 plus years, they continue working when they've been long eligible to retire.
Yes.
And I think about that person being like, I wonder what is going on in their life, if anything, that they're going to have when they're either forced to leave or they have no other option. Speak to that demographic.
Yeah. Man, I love these clients when they come in. I do. I know I just knocked it. Like, don't you come to me and tell me like you want to clean out your closet at 25 years in. I do love this population as well, because it's its own thing within departments. And I would say in some ways, more than resolving the trauma at that point, it's important to consider identity. Your identity's always been this, so what now? Like, how do we consider what else you want in life? What other dreams have you had? What other things do you want to invest in that would still feel good to you so that you could look forward to a life after being on the department? Because it is going to be different, but let's have one that you want to go to. Let's have a life that you're excited to live. So if there has been no thought around that, there will be avoidance around that.
I think it's interesting that in our career fields, our names change when we acquire certifications and training. A doctor is now DR, whatever. A nurse is now RN, whatever.
Yeah.
Our name is our identity, and we're in a career that adds to our name, which adds to our identity. How do you, I know you spoke on it just now, even a little bit, but how do you tell that new person in these career fields, you need to separate your identity from your vocation? As important and as powerful as it is, there needs to be a degree of separation. How do you do that?
Yeah. And, I might not even say separate. I might say, what if you considered it less black and white? What if you considered it as this is an aspect of who you are? Because you're also a sibling, a hunter, whatever else that you see, a father, a mother, an aunt, an uncle. Like, you also have other aspects of your identity that are really important as well. And so when retirement comes, or when you need to take a leave because it's gotten to you, relying on those other aspects of who you are bring a resilience. It brings a resourcefulness, and it honors who you are, all of you, not just this one part of you, because it isn't all of you.
I like what you said earlier about you're a father. Obviously, this podcast is hopefully catering, not explicitly to that demographic, but that's been my focus because that's the season I'm in. I'm a new father. I wanted to have this conversation to know what to watch out for. And I've seen therapy myself. 3 times, at least 3 times, yeah. So I'm hoping that to who's ever listening, if you're a new father, a young father, an experienced father, there's obviously components that you've already spoken towards to keep an eye out, because you don't want to bring the worst of your vocation home to your kids. Do you have anything else you can add to that separation? Speak to the fathers that you've worked with.
Yeah. Again, I think use it to your advantage too. So as much as I want you to leave work at work, I think use it to your advantage in some ways. So there's one intervention idea that I've given my clients along the way, and some have found real great success and they really like it. As they go on and off shift, I have them get action figures, a big action figure and a little one, or whatever. And they do an exchange with their kid before they leave. So they say, all right, bud, I'm going on shift. I need you to take care of my guy, and I'll take care of yours.
Oh, I love that.
And they swap.
It's almost bringing tears to my eyes.
Yeah. They swap action figures, and they have this commitment to tend to that action figure. And it gives a reminder for the firefighter, the police officer, the paramedic, whoever it is, that like, I have a home life. I have a reason I'm doing this, right? Like, I'm working for the weekend sometimes, or working to provide, and that's a good thing. I have joy at home. It brings a lot of awareness just in that action figure. And then for your kid, it allows for this cool attachment and connection when you're not there. And so when you get back home, you can do your exchange again and check in on how it went. How'd you do caring for my dude?
I love that.
Right? And so, especially for little kids, this works for little ones. Teenagers may just roll their eyes at you, but the little ones love it. They think it's so cool. They think it's a really tangible way to not have you around. So that's one way I like to think about, like, how do you go on and off shift or on and off segment well? Mm-hmm. I also encourage dads to think about, like, how do they come off shift in some level of ritual way? Do you have some way that you know that you're done? Whether it's hanging up a helmet, whether it's taking off the gear, whether it's you shower. Like, there can be simple things that just kind of like activate or regulate the brain by knowing this is what I do every time I come off shift, if I can help it, or off segment, if I can help it, that says I'm now dad.
Mm. As you said that made me think of, I've spoken about this before on this forum. One of the reasons I thought this podcast would be an interesting experiment, my career call happened just a couple years ago, and it had to do with kids. And personally for me, it was 3 months into being a new dad. So driving home from that, I have about an hour and 15 minute commute home. So in that time, I was able to unpack it. But even pulling into my town where I live, I thought to myself, and I don't know where this thought came from, but I thought, I'm not going to go home yet. I'm going to go speak with a priest, and then I'm going to go speak with a friend, and then I'll go home. I don't know where that came from. I've never done that before in 10 years. I mean, I've had some serious calls, just like I'm sure any client that you've worked with has had. For me, it was my career. I don't want to say it was my career high. It was the most destructive call of my career. So having that thought process and then acting on it, I don't know where that came from. Maybe it was just some sort of buffer to put in place before coming home. I just thought, and to hear you say, set these things in place, set these things in motion, so that if you need to use them, they're familiar space to you. It's an encouraging thing to hear. So,
I mean, it really sounds like you were, for some reason, in touch with what you needed in that exact moment.
And I couldn't even, I don't know if I could even identify what that is, put words to it or anything. I do know, and I would imagine that most people in my field and related fields would identify something happens in those traumatic moments where every single detail is etched in your brain forever. Maybe not forever. But
maybe not forever.
I feel like, and please, jump in, maybe that's another red flag too, where you're in those moments, you're on those calls, and for some reason, all six senses are just redlining, and you're captivating everything in the atmosphere. You're remembering every single little detail, where a piece of paper was, the emotion on someone's face. What does that mean?
What does it mean after the fact?
During, after, yeah.
Well, during, it's if it's if it's a really extreme and critical incident, thank God for your brain to do that. It's a resilient resource to go, where is everything? What do I need? What do I take in? How do I gather the information that I need in order to execute the mission, in order to treat well? So in that regard, that's a natural and normal reaction on scene. Especially to something you may have not seen before, is particularly odd or horrifying. You would have that really acute experience. Now, if it's a call that you are confused by later why that happened, that to me may indicate that there's an accumulation happening, that you've had same or similar stuff, where you've been on scene with something same or similar. It doesn't have to be exact, but just something same or similar from one of your senses. And so it heightens your state of arousal to pay closer attention. So for example, if you go on a scene, 10 years ago, and there's a certain smell, that smell sticks with you. Okay, wrap that up, move on. Now we're in present. You go on scene, totally different scenario, but a similar or familiar smell to that. That incident was maybe from 10 years ago handled in a poor manner. There was a poor outcome. You were ridiculed for it or not supported. Guess what happens? Trauma comes in twos. So all of a sudden you have this second thing for the nervous system to latch onto and go, see, it could happen again. And so then you're extra hyper aware.
That's interesting you use the olfactory sense as your example.
I mean, that is interesting, isn't it? Because there are a lot of other senses, but man, there's something about smelling something.
What is it?
It's associated directly with memory too.
Okay.
The sense of smell.
Okay.
And it's here, right? Between our eyes, behind our eyes is the olfactory region. And so if that gets damaged, it actually damages something about how we remember things. So the sense of smell is just one that I also have treated, right? Yeah. When people think about a memory, it's not happening in my office when they're thinking about it, but they can smell it again. Or they can hear it again, or they can taste something again, or, fill in the blank with a sense. Yeah. So if that's happening on scene, I would wonder about that, but also honor, that may just be the way that you need to take it in to do the job and to be acutely aware. There's a reason for our fight, flight, or freeze response to come into play and make us really engaged. However, if it's happening when we're not on shift, on scene, doing what we need to do, then that's intrusive. And it's surely something that needs to be handled, where we need to do the work to metabolize it, desensitize it, metabolize it so you can put it away.
At the beginning of our conversation, and I want to finish with this thought, you describe an atmosphere where you're asking people the question, why did this career field find you? I had a patient ask me that recently. There's some moments where things are intense, not a lot of dialogue in the back of an ambulance, but there's some moments, more often than not, where you can have a conversation. And this patient asked me that. And it took me a little bit to kind of think and gather the right thoughts, but what I've come to refine it as is I have this desire for authenticity. You said something very similar to that when we first started. You enjoy sitting down, having coffee, listening to people. Yeah. I want to speak to the listeners who have that desire for authenticity, that there are specific career fields that can cater to that. These ones, first responders, nurses, therapists, if that is something that really gives you energy, people, I'd encourage you to pull on that thread. I think that'd be really something, because there's something about seeing somebody in their most vulnerable moment that is energizing for me. I'm gathering, both listening to what you're saying and watching your body language, that energizes you too.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yep. There's something satisfying about, being able to help, even if it is just listening.
Yeah. I mean, Christ calls us to do it, as cliche as it is, living in the filtered, fake, however you want to call it, world that we live in. There is a real currency to authenticity. And I think whether people know it or not, that's what they desire.
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
That's so cool.
Yeah, absolutely.
If someone's listening to this, if someone shares it with a friend, how can they contact you?
Oh, sure. Well, I run a small group practice in St. Paul called Sage Leaf Wellness. So sageleafwellness.com is a good way to get at me. There's a way to contact me through there.
Is it okay if we put some contact information in the show notes?
Yep, absolutely. Absolutely. An email, phone call, whatever is needed. I'm happy to connect.
That's terrific.
Absolutely.
Wow. Britni, this has been a cathartic experience.
I know.
Love that we had this conversation.
Yeah, me too.
Thank you so much for hosting.
You're welcome.